Welcome to the You Can Man podcast, episode 4. I'm Josh.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Dave.
And on this week's episode, you should know how to do this. Basic automotive repair and maintenance. Okay, welcome to the show. This is episode 4. So guys, big event today, big winter weather event for Georgia.
It was huge.
Yeah, so
So big.
Dave, were you off of work today?
I was off of work, as was my wife. We have 2 kids, so we kind of, played off each other and both stayed home today. Worked from home, and I barely made it here tonight. The roads were so treacherous.
So you weren't actually off work.
I wasn't off work. I worked a lot.
You just
today.
worked.
Yeah, that's one thing that's not as nice nowadays is I think back in the day when there was like an event where you had to stay home, there was no working from home. It was actually a day off.
There was not. I mean,
now there's always an expectation.
there's good and bad to that, right? Like you
100%.
you can't unplug now.
100%.
If I'm home, I'm working. So anyway, yeah, I did work from home, but I stayed home.
Yeah, so to catch everybody up, we in Georgia, we're not prepared. Well, we're not
well prepared
we're not
for
equipped.
inclement.
We're not equipped.
Correct.
Yeah, equipped for winter weather. So anytime there's a hint that there could be snow on the ground, everybody since Snowpocalypse has kind of taken the conservative route and canceled everything.
Definitely.
So Snowpocalypse, what Josh was talking about, was what, 2014?
Yeah, it was 5 years ago.
2014.
Yesterday or today, I think.
And the snow came in at the just most inopportune time during rush hour.
Yeah, it was right around noon, I think.
Yeah,
Something
started
like that.
around noon.
Oh, sorry. It was
Started
prior
around
to
noon.
rush hour.
But everybody was already at work with no warning.
Everyone was caught off guard, and it was just a complete disaster.
Yep.
Complete disaster.
Yeah, people got stuck like on the interstate for hours and hours and hours, like 8 hours, right?
Yeah, it was
longer than
it was
that.
the event that where SNL got to make fun of us. So that's how
You
you know
from
you've
Callaway.
made it. Yeah, that's how you know you've made it. And the Devil's Dandruff
Right.
making it to Atlanta. So that's what most of us dealt with today was a non-event.
It was a non-factor.
Literally rained, and then the roads dried out, and the sun came out, and it got really cold. And that is the extent.
That was it.
This is probably a horrible analogy, but it's our version of when they think a hurricane's going to hit, and then it totally doesn't.
It just veers off.
And they evacuated everybody, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
smaller scale, but
on a much
Better
smaller
safe than sorry is what I always say.
yeah, thank you, Buford. Yeah, so what else you got, Dave? What did you do this weekend?
This weekend, ran the Polar Bear 5K with Josh. We had a great time.
And my brother.
And your brother and Jacob had a lot of fun. Got beat pretty bad by a lot of people, but I had my trusty Garmin watch on for the race, right? So
Solid.
Yeah, solid choice. Got home, took a shower. Somehow I've lost my watch between my bedroom and my bathroom, which are connected by a doorway. And I've been going crazy for the last few days trying to find it. And so today I downloaded an app that like sniffs out Bluetooth signals.
Wow,
and
really?
I paid
with your phone?
With my phone. I paid $6 for it, which is like probably the second most expensive app I've ever
sounds
bought.
like something made up.
Well, I read about it on the internet because this person was in the exact same scenario I was.
Sounds like a divining rod.
They couldn't find their watch, their Bluetooth exercise smartwatch, whatever. So download this app, and it, you like walk around your house really slow, and it literally tells you you're getting colder, you're getting hotter. Well, right as I was using it, my watch died. And my phone could no longer find it. So I paid $6, used it for about 5 minutes.
I'm kind of confused, though. How do you know that your watch died?
Because my phone...
It started picking up the signal?
Yeah, my phone was like, hey, we are connected to your watch. And it's been doing... I know it's at home because my phone's been connected to it for the last 5 days.
Wow.
And then literally 5 minutes after I buy this $6 app, and I'm like, I'm getting warmer, it dies, and now I have no idea where it is.
Technology problems.
Yeah, so
I was without watch.
I'm still without watch. I was very, very, very frustrated. I'm over it now.
But it's in your household.
It's in my house. I'm going to find it. I just don't know when.
Wow.
I didn't run today because obviously you can't run without your watch. But anyway, that was... I said I worked today. I think I said I worked.
Dave, I wasn't going to bring it up, but maybe you need me to come over and find your watch like I found where to put your air filter.
I thought we weren't going to talk about that.
We don't have to. We don't have to.
Well, I had a furnace blunder. Couldn't find my air filter in one of my furnaces.
2 days. Yeah, it was in his crawl space.
It is. I know. Well, I knew where the furnace was, and I got down there, and I could not look. I knew I needed. I've been in my house 3 years. It's the one thing I'm terrible at is changing my air filters. Couldn't find where the air filter goes. Tim comes over. We're crawling around my crawl space. He finds it in like a half a second. So
yeah,
it was embarrassing.
Yeah. So the guys running the DIY podcast sometimes need a little
pillars
nudge.
of the DIY.
It kind of was unlike any other air filter thing that I have seen. It just kind of had like a piece of metal covering it instead of something that you pull out. So
you can sugarcoat it. It was still a blunder, and I knew.
So it kind of blended in.
It did blend in, but I knew when I couldn't find it, and I was like, I'm just going to call Tim to come help me. You know, second set of eyes. I was like, I could spend a little more time and find this, but whatever. Yeah.
Speaking of filters, and not to pile on here, but Dave and I had an interesting discussion about dishwasher filters. So, if you bought a dishwasher, if you purchased a dishwasher in the past 10 years, it likely has a filter on it. And I've run into multiple people who have no idea there is a filter on your dishwasher.
I didn't know. Are we talking about, is this a filter that you change, or is it you just talking about the screen in the bottom?
The screen in the bottom, but some of them are pretty complex and have multiple pieces.
Mine was multiple parts, and I didn't know that there was a filter down there. And
tell them how you found out.
I found out the hard way. Like my dishwasher was not smelling right, did not smell good, and I was like, what is going on here? And so I'm like fishing around down there, and I see looks like a filter. So I'm taking this thing apart. It was unspeakably disgusting. It's 3 years of
that. Okay. Now I will say that I'm an obsessive pre-washer. So
I am too.
I am as well, for the most part. But I think 3 years in, you're just gonna you can't get around it.
I try to change mine every 6 weeks if I'm thinking about it.
Really?
And
guys, I've had my dishwasher since 2009.
It depends on what kind it is. I mean, they're all different now. I've got like a Bosch. It's super sealed, so like any food that stays in there is like you smell it immediately. And I just because of Dave's conversation, I went ahead and rinsed mine out the other day. But yeah, if you don't rinse them out frequently, they will start to stink and they get slimy, and it'll take you half an hour to clean that thing out.
Oh, it took way. I mean, it is pristine now, but it took a long time, a couple hours.
And we just talked to another buddy who was in on the same conversation, same problem. He went years. He never knew he had a filter at all on his dishwasher, and waited until the dishes weren't getting clean, the stink was coming in, and that's.
Did we already talk about our mutual friend Justin, who I gave the dryer to?
No,
we didn't talk about.
We did talk about that off the podcast. I mean, it's ringing a bell for me.
Okay. Yeah. So I sold. I actually did. Yeah, I sold an old dryer to Justin, and he took it. It was working. It was fine. Gave him a great deal. I don't even know, probably $50 or something. And then he was moving, and he was complaining about, hey, that dryer you gave me, sold me, doesn't dry anymore. And I'm like, bro, it was not that. I don't think it was that old. It was still working perfectly fine. It should be fine. Well, and then I go over to help him move, and I'm thinking, he's probably, I don't know. I took out the filter housing. And he had never changed. You
mean the filter you change every time you pull the lint trap?
The lint trap. You're talking about the lint trap that your wife changes out, or you change out do that almost every day.
I do that after every.
So he was
load.
letting that.
Yeah, after every time.
It was probably, I don't know. It was almost like 1.5 inches thick.
Oh my gosh!
We're lucky to still have him around.
I know. Yeah.
We could have lost him in a house fire.
That is a cause of fires.
Wow.
I think it was a situation where his mom had literally done his laundry.
Oh man, I guess so.
For so many years, and then he moved out on his own.
But he knows now.
Oh, he knows now.
All right,
I gave him because
that's all that matters.
It's compounded because he was he was complaining like, "Oh, this dryer you gave me is crap." Anyways,
that's funny. Well,
all right, we should probably get into what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Today,
well, speaking of things you should know how to do, we're gonna talk today about some basic automotive repair and maintenance that you should know how to do. And after that, we're also going to turn it over to a transportation related segment with Tim. So this is kind of an all automotive transportation podcast for you today. And so what we've done is we have compiled a list of 2 things that we've all agreed on beforehand of automotive repair and maintenance related things that you should know how to do. And what are the first 2 that we're going to discuss?
Right. So one of them is changing oil,
and the other is changing a flat tire.
Okay. So yeah, the 3 of us have agreed that those are kind of the 2 most basic maintenance or repair items that every guy should know how to do.
Definitely 2 big ones, right?
Yeah, girls should know how to do it as well. No reason not to. So changing your own oil. You want to get into that a little bit, Tim?
And I was just going to say, so we're doing this like we did episode 2, was it? Like we did the tool related thing. Yeah. So we picked 2 non-negotiables, if you will. These are the things that we all agree on. Yep. And then we're coming to the table with a few more, and then we'll compile a final list from there. So we'll kind of go back and forth. So I actually don't know what these guys chose as their skills that you should know.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So anything we want to touch on about oil changes? Just, I know we're not going to do a step by step on any of these things, but general things that we can cover.
So I know we've talked about this before, that I'd change my own oil, and you guys currently do not at this stage of life.
Correct.
But that I still enjoy doing it, that it may not necessarily be worth my time doing.
You feel it's important for you to do it
for
other reasons.
I liked Tim's. I thought it was perfect reasoning about it's good to get under your hood every once in a while and physically see what's going on under there. Because I drive a workhorse, a 2003 Lexus ES, which is a glorified Camry. So that thing runs like a top all the time. I never have to touch it. But it would be good for me to poke around under the hood every once in a while, and really see what's going on. So I think that's a great reason to change your own oil.
For sure.
So the other item, or the second skill, changing a flat tire, I think that's important because, I mean, if you're driving down the road and then boom, the tire goes flat, I guess you have AAA these days, but maybe they're not around, or maybe it's really late at night or whatever. I don't know. It's an important thing to be able to you need to get out there, get the tire fixed, and get back on the road. It is a safety thing
because. If you're out in the middle of nowhere too, you can get a tow truck out there, but it may be a considerable amount of time.
Right. And if you don't know how to do it, it is intimidating in the beginning, but it's something that's very doable for really anybody. I think.
And there's parts of the country that a large part of the country, flyover country, where you may not have cell phone signals. I mean, if we drive 2 hours from where we are right now in the heart of the suburbs of Atlanta, we can get into highways and roads that do not have cell coverage, and you could absolutely get stranded out where you don't know where you are.
And it's a very easy fix that you do not need to be paying somebody to come and do this for you. In fact, we had a good friend of our mutual friend of all of ours, another guy named Josh. He was texting me and saying that he's been listening to the show, and he just got a flat tire. He was in a rental car. He was here in town. Anyways, he called the rental company, and they said, yeah, we can come do that for you, but it's going to be a $70 charge.
What?
So he thought, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to do this myself. So he did, and it was
good
fun.
for him.
Yeah, and kudos to Josh for listening and heeding some advice to
Thanks,
get your hands dirty.
Yep.
All right, so let's do a little round robin like we did last time. We'll kind of go around the table, and we're going to add to these first 2 items, and we're going to give our recommendations and do a little discussion on each of these items. So, Dave, let's start with you.
All right.
And see where you are. Let's put your next item on the list.
So this, my first one, the third one, I guess, is almost more basic. It is more basic than the first 2, but so the first one that I came up with is checking all of your fluid levels, okay? So checking your washer fluid, checking your radiator. The radiator comes to mind because if no one's ever taught you to take a radiator cap off slowly when your car is hot or warm, you can burn yourself, like if nobody's told, because it's under pressure when it's hot. And
I would say never, not even slowly take it off when it's hot.
If you're a pro like me, you can do it.
Just get that rag out.
I mean,
cover the
cap.
Yeah, and then,
but what are you checking if?
Just to make sure there's something in there. Well, because when it's hot and it's overheating, you're like, well, do I have any water in there? I don't know.
Right.
So checking that, and then also checking your brake light fluid. Everybody ever check that?
Right.
I say that
I change my turn signal fluid.
Yeah, turn signal fluid all the time. I think my uncle told my mom at one point when they were like young. He said, "Hey, go up to the
Auto
the
parts
place
store.
and you need to ask them to check your brake light fluid for you."
Oh, brothers.
So anyway, that was mine. Check all fluid levels.
Okay, yeah, and and checking all fluids is, we're talking oil, washer fluid, radiator. All those things can be looked up on YouTube. There's a lot of great resources out there.
Right.
And
All of
just
those
to figure out how to
things-
do those safely.
Yeah, because you could open up your car's manual and it should tell you exactly how to check all those things.
You need to check them. I had my first car. I multiple times went to check the oil, bone dry. So these are things you need to check.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
It burned oil.
All right. You
All right.
obviously had not checked it in a
I checked-
considerable amount of time.
I mean, it may have been several months, but it burned oil really badly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we initially talked about limiting this list, but I think we'll do it like we did the tools. We'll just kind of let it flow, see where we end up, and compile a list from there.
Right.
So I'll go second. My addition to this list is going to be how to jumpstart your car.
Yes.
I thought about that.
How to use jumper cables.
Yep.
And it seems straightforward enough. First of all, I think everyone should carry jumper cables.
Definitely.
Find a place in your car, make a place in your car to carry jumper cables. This is a super common problem.
Yeah.
Most of the time you're around other human beings that could lend you their battery to jump your car.
Well, and it's going to make you feel good to have the cables so you can help somebody else.
Yeah, that's true as well. And so just real quick, I'm not going to do a DIY, but
I'm actually interested to hear how you say this.
there's
an actual proper
Yes,
way.
there is.
There's a proper way.
I can never remember it, but there is a proper way.
There's a proper way to jumpstart a car. So real quick, and again, look these up on reputable websites. We may link to one in the show notes here. But what you want to do is each end of the jumper cables has a red and a black. The red is for the positive and the black is for the negative. Your battery should have red and black terminals, which correspond to positive and negative as well. So, what you
Well,
should
it's
do,
not going to. The terminals themselves aren't going
they're
to be
labeled.
red and black.
They're
It's going to
labeled.
have a positive
Yes.
and negative.
They may have
side.
a circle or some kind of felt that's a color.
Yeah,
it
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 depends on
should
your
be.
car.
It should be pretty. I
It's
think
well
mine
marked.
are red and black.
It's well marked
Really?
either way.
Yeah.
Some of them have a red plastic cap.
Yeah, it's a
over
plastic
them.
cap.
Now, wait,
Depends
are
on
you
the
talking
age
about
of
the
your car.
cables? Because you said terminals.
No,
Sorry.
terminals
Okay.
on the battery sometimes have a red cap. So
Just trying to be clear.
The 98 Explorer doesn't. It's not color coded.
yeah, it might not be. So you hook up your red cables first. So red cable to your car on the positive terminal, red cable to the positive terminal on the donor car.
Oh, okay. Clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then now you're left with two black cables to attach to. Now on your car, you're going to attach that black cable to the negative terminal on the battery on your car. Now, a lot of people, I'd say most people that I've run into trying to jump a car want to take that other black one and just hook it up to the negative terminal on the donor car where you're getting power from.
I've done it for years.
So-
Yep, I have
Works
too.
fine.
I never ground it.
Now that it works, and the reason for this, it's a safety issue as far as the battery is concerned. I don't know the details of it, but what you're supposed to do, instead of going red to red and black to black,
Right.
on the donor car that you're getting power from, you take the black cable and attach it to a bare piece of metal. It can be a nut, a bolt, the engine block, part of the frame on the donor car, not to the battery. So on the donor car, only the red cable is attached to the battery. And that is how you properly set up the jumper cables to be jumped.
I think the reason why there's no issue when I've put up just black to black, red to red, is because every car that I've done that on is properly grounded.
Yes.
So there should always be a ground coming from the engine block that's grounded. There's from the main electrical system is grounded. All this kind of stuff. So that's probably why it works to go.
Yep.
That way. But yes, Josh is completely
if
right.
He makes a good point.
If you run into a situation where a car wasn't grounded, you could apparently explode the battery or catch it on fire, overheat it or something.
Well, I've melted the cables together before. I mean, I
That's nice.
I hooked the car up to the donor car and walked away, and the cables touched and they completely melted
Yeah.
together.
That's great.
And let me add one more point about jumping your car. So with technology these days, there are these, they call them power packs or portable jump starters that you can keep in your car. I've never really been interested, but I started looking into them as I was putting together my point here for the list. Those things, apparently, the new ones, some of them are only like 6 inches by 3 inches, like just a little bigger than the big iPhones, and they're, about an inch thick. So they're these power packs, and they can stay charged for up to a year.
Wow.
And you can jumpstart like a diesel truck off of these things. That might be an option to
It's a great
keep
thing
in
to
your
have
car.
around.
And I mean, you can get them for $100, $150 and keep in your car. You just got to remember to regularly charge them, every 6 months or a year or whatever they recommend. But that could be another option to kind of be able to rescue yourself.
Huh.
So, yeah. All right, Tim, what you got up next?
Okay. You guys may disagree with this, but I'm going to say changing your brakes, specifically disc brakes. Not many cars these days have still drum brakes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So,
I don't think I can change it. I can only change disc brake pads. I've never done a
could
drum.
do it.
I know I could do it. I've never done it.
So my 1975 Ford Bronco does have drum brakes on the back.
Yep.
It actually had 4-wheel drum brakes, but I converted the front to disc. Anyways, the reason why it is very, very easy. You think about changing brakes, and you're like, that is something very serious. If I mess that up, I could crash my car. It's something real serious. But there's just an enormous amount of YouTube videos out there that
Absolutely.
you can totally do this yourself. And it's one of those jobs that is definitely going to save you a significant amount of money.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
a basic, I was actually talking to a friend about this, and so he ended up just taking it to a mechanic, but I think he was quoted like $600 to change his rotors and pads. Well, the parts for that is under $200.
Absolutely.
So unless you're valuing your time in excess of $200 an hour, you could probably make that happen and save yourself $400.
Yeah, that is a great, I think we've talked about before already that, changing your brakes or changing your oil for us was kind of one of the first things that we got our hands dirty on with our cars. But that is a true money savings, because today, if you go to really any auto repair place, especially if it's a dealer, you are not leaving there without shelling out $500.
Yep.
And if you can spend under $200 on all the parts and spend, even if it's an afternoon, to save yourself $300, I think that is money well spent. And that was on my list too. So, Tim, I think that's a good addition.
I mean, there are opportunities for you to really mess things up. But like I said, if you do your homework, I really do feel like that's something that you can accomplish. Probably would be a good idea to have someone that's obviously done it before. They can walk you through the process the first time you do it. Mm-hmm. Once you see it done, you're going to say, wow, that's it. I'm totally doing that myself next time.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. There are a couple things that can trip you up, but like Josh and Tim mentioned, I mean, it is a big money saver. So it's definitely a good thing to know how to do. It was on my list, but something that was a little bit higher on the list for me was my next one, plugging a punctured tire. So
I thought about that one.
But you didn't put it on there.
No, I didn't put it on.
So I put it on there. So when you change your flat tire,
I have never done that.
Oh, I just did it a few months ago.
Really?
Yeah, it's a great.
Wow.
I mean, so it saves you. I mean, if you take it to a tire change place, they can do it for you. It's really not that expensive, but it's a very, very easy thing to do. And this is something that you do if you have a puncture in the tread of your tire. So if you tear up the sidewall, you're buying a new tire. But if you pick up a nail in the tread of your tire, it's a very easy thing to do, to plug the tire with a patch kit, and it goes really quickly. It's super inexpensive, and you're back in business really quickly.
So your confidence with that, is that related at all to your background in bicycles and repairing bike tires?
Probably. I've changed hundreds and hundreds of bicycle tires. But
Dave used to work at a bike shop.
Used to work at a bike shop, worked at a bike shop in college, had a lot of fun. But yeah, definitely. I just think it's a good thing to be able to do. It's very easy, very inexpensive, and it gets you back on the road.
Yeah, that's good. And especially, and I don't know if I'm proud or embarrassed to admit this, I pay for the extra special insurance.
Be embarrassed.
On my tires when I buy them. And
but that also when you're paying for that, because I do the same thing, but it's for the sidewall.
Yeah.
It protects against everything, and I've used it on the last two set of tires. I've used I've used the warranty.
So you get new tires.
Well, if they can plug it, they plug it for free.
Commonly referred to as road hazard.
Yeah, road hazard. So that's if you're local to Atlanta, or actually he's syndicated everywhere. Clark Howard, I don't know what his stance is on road hazard for tires, but I have used that multiple times. So
yeah, but I think that's probably worth doing.
But yeah, if Dave says that,
and we're not disagreeing.
No, I'm not disagreeing. I just have never done it.
You make a good point. If you get a cut in the sidewall, if you buy a $200 tire and you get a cut in the sidewall, when you leave the place and you don't have that insurance, then you're buying another tire because you're not patching that. Sure. But if you get a puncture in the tread of the tire, it's an easy fix.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to vote it out because it does sound like you make it sound like at least a pretty doable fix. Like it's not daunting.
Sure.
Not
Very
a daunting
doable.
text. Cool. All right. So I have another battery related one.
Okay.
And it's just replacing your battery.
I thought about that.
That was on my list as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, another comment. So if you're jump starting your car, you likely have a battery problem. So the next step may be to replace your battery. Now, you'll need to go to your local auto parts store and have them test that battery, and Walmart's do it as well to see if the battery's actually bad. And if it is actually bad, you can literally change the battery in the parking lot, which I have done dozens of times.
Now, I will say that most major auto parts stores will offer that. Will do it for free. So I agree with
buy the battery.
I agree with you that you should definitely know how to do that, and you should be able to do that. And if you don't know how to do it, you could just go to the auto parts store and watch them change it, and then you're going to know for next time. But I would agree with that.
But oftentimes, you have a car with a dead battery. How are you getting it to the auto parts store? So, my car will die, at my house. I'll take my wife's car up to the auto parts store, buy a battery, go put it in. And Josh, that's definitely an easy thing to do.
Yeah, and I want to mention the story about Dave and I used to work just a couple of miles from each other. And one day on my lunch break, my battery died, and so I was able to call Dave, and he came over and picked me up.
Good friend.
Went to the store, brought a battery, and I changed the battery right in the parking lot. So if you have basic tools, very basic tools, you can change your battery very easily. And again, go on YouTube, just look at a couple of videos. It's super straightforward.
There are some just stupid engineering things sometimes with some cars that have like these crazy plastic covers all over.
They'll hide them in the
body.
trunk.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's crazy.
All right. Tell me what you got.
All right. I guess I'm next. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I think that you should know how to do a basic tune-up.
Wow.
By that I mean spark plugs and wires. Now we call it a tune-up these days. Back in the day, that was an actual like tune-up. They're actually changing things on your carburetor. They're tuning it up, right? Mm-hmm. It's just that term is still used, but by that I mean changing spark plugs and the wires with it. Again, it's super easy, dependent upon your motor. So I will give you that. There are certain motors. If you have a front-wheel drive car and it's a larger motor and not that big of an engine bay, you may have some issues getting to the cylinders in the back. But if you have a rear-wheel drive car, it's typically a lot easier, and especially if you have like an inline four-cylinder. Super easy to do that.
Yep.
So I think you should know how to do that.
I actually had spark plugs on my list, spark plugs and wires, because – and I put it on there mostly because of the cost savings. Again, if you're going to a mechanic or the dealership for spark plugs and wires, $250 minimum probably.
Yep.
Where you can buy for most cars for $35 or $40, you can buy a set of spark plugs, and for another $35 or $40, you can buy the spark plug wires. And so you're in at $80.
And with all the money that
max.
you save, you can get the really, really fancy spark plugs, and you can add like 400 horsepower.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
So that is a myth. But something good to know about the spark plugs is, and I am guilty of neglecting this, they need to be changed out, depending on what type of spark plugs, every 40,000 to 100,000 miles, depending on the type of spark plug you get. And even knowing cars for as long as I have, that kind of surprised me because I do neglect thinking about spark plugs.
I don't do it that often. I have done it. It was the last thing on my list was changing your spark plugs for the reason that these guys mentioned already. You know, it saves you a lot of money. It is relatively easy to do. It's just a great thing to be able to do, but I definitely don't do it every 40,000 miles.
All right.
Full disclosure.
Should we each give maybe one more?
Let's do one more and wrap it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's you two. I'm out. Like this, you've exhausted my list. That was my last one.
Because I actually kind of gave a couple bonus ones on here. So
I'll add one. I've got one to add. It's kind of a wild card here. So, and I have to do this. I don't. My garage is mainly used for storage right now, so my car spends a lot of time outside. My poor 2003 Lexus.
Treat it better, Josh.
He sleeps outside. So, one thing I put on here was how to restore your headlights.
Yes.
How to do some headlight
That's a favorite
restoration.
of mine.
Now that's like I mean, this is something anyone can do. Literally anybody can do this. They have a headlight restoration kit. And what this means is your headlights will, from being outside in the UV rays, especially on older cars, the plastics start to break down.
It'll oxidize,
the UV.
right? It's
Yeah,
oxidation.
and they get cloudy. And that is honestly a safety issue. When my wife drives my car at night sometimes, she's like, your headlights are terrible.
Yeah.
And I look at the car and I'm like, yes, they are. They're very cloudy. This is something you can buy a kit on Amazon. I use the 3M kit for $17 on Amazon. And you just use a power drill, and it has different buffers and polishing compounds, and it will literally turn your headlights crystal clear. You need to do some protection with painter's tape around your paint. But other than that, it's very straightforward, step-by-step directions, and it's a big safety issue that you can get done in about an hour.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do. I've done it on all my cars. I think people think that they're dirty. They're dirty headlights, but they're not. It's like Josh mentioned, the UV rays and it's oxidation on the headlight. The kit works great. Like Josh said, crystal clear headlights, a little bit of elbow grease, but it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
all right, I'm actually going to add two maybe because one of them's super easy.
You can do two since I'm not going to do
We
any.
didn't say changing your air filter because that's so easy.
I have that on my list.
Okay, that's okay. Well, I don't even think we had to talk about that one. That's just
Very
like
easy.
a couple clips. As long as you know where it is.
And if it's the engine one, kind of like the spark plugs, it adds like 400 horsepower. If you get a K&N.
Really. There is the cabin air filter
Yeah,
too.
we should mention that. Yeah, there's an air filter that's under your hood that's the main intake for the engine.
Right, and a lot of people may not know that there's also a cabin air filter, which is
Correct.
filtering the air coming through your vents.
Yeah, through your
inside the
air
car.
conditioning system.
Exactly.
And the heating system. Yeah.
Because that can get really nasty too.
Yeah, and again, just look those up. Just type in your model year and the name of your car into YouTube and air filter, and it will come up with results likely for your car.
Yeah. Maybe I'll hold off on these other two. I'll just throw these out here, and you guys are going to be like, no, you don't really need to know how to do that. Changing your transmission fluid and also flushing your coolant system.
Coolant, I'll give you coolant. Transmission, I'm going to say no. It's kind of a...
Yeah, transmission, no. That's pretty advanced to me.
Not advanced for Tim, though.
I guess it's not. If our title is basic stuff,
that's
then
beyond
I guess you're
basic.
right.
Yeah, I'll give you. What was the other coolant? Yeah, I almost put
That's a
coolant
good
on
one.
my list.
Yep.
I'll add to just in passing, replacing your wipers. Super
Yeah.
basic.
Now, that is another thing that the auto parts store will come out and do for you as well.
Sure. That's going to wrap up this segment. I think we
So
we
we'll-
produced a good list.
Yeah, we'll button all this up, put it on the show notes, and maybe kind of go into a little bit more detail on there if you want to read more about it. But yeah, these are some things that you should know how to do.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, and so after the break, we're going to have Tim walk us through some transportation related talk.
Right, and Dave and Josh have no idea what I'm going to talk about, but it's transportation related, and it's
Very
going to be
excited.
awesome.
Yep, we'll be back after the break. This episode is sponsored by 1776 United. 1776 United is a patriotic and historically inspired lifestyle brand. They make the best patriotic shirts and apparel on the market today. I personally own many of their products, and if you want to don patriotic gear without looking gaudy, check them out on Instagram, Facebook, and at 1776united.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. So my topic for this week is transportation related. Josh and Dave have no idea what I'm going to talk about.
No idea.
All right, you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Yep.
All right. the U.S. interstate system.
Ooh, I like that. I like this
okay.
already.
Very
I like this
exciting.
already.
Yes. All right, so I'm just gonna hop in there with it. Well, first of all, I did have a first icebreaker question, if you will. So we all love driving.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Road trips.
Love
Who
it.
does the driving? Do you do the driving or do your wife?
Okay.
Because your wife
Come
does
on.
the
All
job.
right.
Let's be real.
Is there a number larger than 100%?
Because I know-
It's the wife every time, right,
I know.
guys?
Well, I know some
Get
guys.
on at it.
Josh told me to
Honestly.
get out of here.
I know some guys, and their wife does the driving on the road trip.
Now, I'll tell you what, like I said, is there a number bigger than 100%? Because that's how often I drive.
Josh will not let you drive
Yeah.
on a road. I mean, I've been
I don't even
on
let my friends drive.
I've been on dozens of road trips with Josh, and I don't think I've ever driven.
Yeah, maybe
now,
a couple times.
let's
doesn't
not,
allow it.
Let's not alienate our single guys out there listening. So before you were married, if you were with your buddies, was it you driving? Because I'm trying to think about
I
when
split time. Me and Tim split time.
All right, yeah, because I remember when Josh and I would drive together before we were married, and Josh telling me that, you know what, I completely trust you when you're driving.
Yes.
Like
Josh
I
has said
could-
that to me before too.
Yes.
Yeah, I could fall asleep and you could be driving,
Yes.
and I wouldn't worry about
Well, when
it.
you're
And
with
I feel
those,
the same way.
when you're with those people, you know who, when they're behind the wheel, you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, I'm comfortable.
Yes.
They know what they're doing.
Yes.
Yep.
There's a select few that
Very
meet
select.
that criteria.
Yep.
Gotcha. Well, we couldn't talk about the interstate system without bringing up a road trip or
Sure.
something. So, anyways, I just wanted to ask that. All right. So, the official name of the interstate system. Anybody know what the official name is?
Like the overarching name for all the interstates.
Like the federally recognized name,
Yes.
the International Highway System.
International.
Yeah, it's totally the international highways, linking all nations
It's a good
to the
name.
All right,
United
it
States.
is the Dwight D. Eisenhower National System of Interstate and Defense Highways.
Okay, so
Whoa,
I knew
and
that
defense.
Dwight Eisenhower kind
Yes.
of implemented our
I knew
interstate
that.
system. I knew that he did it, but I didn't know that he
Right, and that
was
was
his
that word
namesake.
defense. I think was
There's a
added
defense
in
tag.
during the
Interesting.
process.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so it came to be. I am going to go into a little bit of history prior to what I'm about to quote, but as we know it today, it was started under the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, popularly known as the National Interstate and Defense Highway Act. And it was enacted on June 29th, 1956, when President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the bill into law.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's later than I feel. Like, it makes sense, but it's
Well, if
like,
you
I feel like
remember-
it's the
I thought it was a
40s,
World
but-
War II thing that that it came about after. So after the Autobahn.
Oh, you're
was-
skipping ahead.
Oh, okay.
You're
I'm going to
skipping-
stop. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, it had an original authorization of $25 billion for the construction of 41,000 miles of the interstate highway system.
Man, how much? You said $25 billion. How much would
Yeah.
that cost today? I feel like it would
I
just
think
be an
I-
astronomical
I
number.
think I do have maybe that stat later on down here.
I want to know. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'll check that out.
That's one thing I reminisce about our older government, just having the vision for these massive
Huge projects,
and
yeah.
actually getting them
Making it happen.
undertaken.
Yeah.
you
Other
know?
than the
Yeah.
big government, I love it.
Sure. Yeah. Subtract the word big government. It's
Right.
beautiful.
So, and it was apparently at the start of it that I don't know if they just thought it supposedly was going to be over a 10-year period. Well, that didn't happen because it was more like 35 or something.
Wow.
And it was
Wait, the government went past their original
That
deadline.
never happens.
Right.
Come on.
and it was the largest public works project in American history to that date.
Wow.
Right. So it was the largest.
Well, you can imagine,
yeah.
crisscrossing the United States with all these highways that we didn't have up until that point.
Right.
It's huge.
So obviously we hinted at the word defense that was in the name of the act that created this. So in 1919, Dwight D. Eisenhower, he took part in the country's first transcontinental army convoy.
Okay.
So that was the first time that the army got together and they were basically testing the roadworthiness of all their trucks and also to promote good roads. So he was part of this convoy. They had members of the press and stuff that would go along, that went along
Interesting.
with us to promote, hey, we need better roads. So that's what kind of really got him started thinking about good roads.
So this is like 40 years before the interstate system.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously Eisenhower went on to be the supreme commander during World War II, right, of the Allied forces, and he was extremely impressed with Germany's Autobahn, which would have been called the Reichsautobahn, right?
Okay.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. You got to ask my wife from German roots or something. She wouldn't know that. I'm just kidding. Anyways, which became obviously the modern Autobahn. So that was the beginning of what we know today as the Autobahn. So there's a quote from Eisenhower: "The old convoy," meaning the convoy that he did in 1919, "had started me thinking about good two-lane highways, but Germany had me see the wisdom of broader ribbons across the land."
Wow.
Yeah, I've never seen them, but they're supposed the roads, the Autobahn, the roads that make it up are supposed to be beautiful, like these sweeping turns and just beautiful
Made
roads
for speed.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
he most definitely drew inspiration from those Nazis, for sure. So there was a grand, quote-unquote, grand plan that Eisenhower had put together, and he was going to present this to the Governor's Conference in upstate New York in July 1954. So this was before the act came into being. He wasn't able to make it because he had to attend a wedding or something. So the then Vice President Nixon was there giving the spiel.
That's
like,
a weak excuse, though, right? Like, hey, we're going to build all these crazy roads, and it's going to be awesome, but first I got to go to this wedding, so
Yeah,
it's not going to happen.
I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. He had something to go to. So he
Higher
gave
engagement.
Come on, Dwight.
he gave his notes to Nixon, right? So Nixon gave the speech or whatever, if you will. So he cited the benefits of improved safety, reduced traffic jams, less traffic-related litigation, increased economic efficiency, and elimination of the, quote, "the appalling inadequacies to meet the demands of catastrophe or defense should an atomic war come."
Wow.
So he
Very
wanted to
practical.
mobilize those troops across the country.
Yeah. So that was a huge part and big reason why the name, obviously, defense is in the name.
You can funnel more money there if you kind of make it a national security issue.
Right.
So is that why, I mean, I always think of the term highway hypnosis. Is that why interstates tend to be kind of just straight shots and really, I mean, it feels like they're very purpose-built.
I actually am going to talk about that later. Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and say it because it does have to do with defense. So there is a common misconception that there was a regulation saying that every so many miles had to be a straightaway so planes
Oh, okay.
could land. And
Interesting.
apparently that's nowhere in the legislation. That's nowhere. It's just an urban myth that got created. And
Okay.
it
Good
makes
to-
sense.
Good to know.
Makes sense, and it's, I mean, they've definitely been used for that purpose, right?
Planes land on highways sometimes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep moving on here. So there was 2 congressional reports, toll roads and free roads in 1939 and interregional highways in 1944. And that kind of established the concept of what we have today. But so I'm kind of going into a little bit of the backstory before the actual act came into being. So way back in FDR's day, he actually created a hand-drawn map of what he thought might work well and presented it to the head of the Bureau of Public Roads, a guy named Thomas H. McDonald. And McDonald then took those notes and he created a study, came back to the president and said, yes, we definitely need to do this. So then Congress got wind of this internal study that was done by McDonald, and they did a study of their own. One thing led to another, but it wasn't until 1956 that they actually did anything about it, because everyone would say, yeah, we really, really need this, but they could never get the funding down.
Interesting.
And it finally happened. So Eisenhower, after the act came to be, he tasked General Lucius D. Clay to head the committee to figure this thing out. How are we going to make this happen? So he's the guy really kicked things off, right? Okay, so I'm going to basically, there's so much information as I was researching this. So what I'm going to do in our show notes is I'm going to link to several articles from the Federal Highway Administration. I think that's it. If you want to read more about this, because there's so much other history that I'm definitely not going to take the time to get into.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I thought it would be good to round it out with some questions for you guys about the interstate system.
Okay.
So
Let's do it.
all right. How wide is a standard single lane supposed to be?
Ooh, I should know this.
I'm gonna
being
say-
a civil engineer.
I'm going to say 12 feet.
You said the
Dang.
one lane,
One lane.
13 feet.
Josh is dead on.
12 feet. Wow.
12
Good job,
feet.
Josh.
Yeah, so these are all rules that they established from the beginning. Like these should be the measurements. Okay, so
I mean, it's interesting that way back then they put these measurements into place, and now all semi trucks, have to fit into this. So that affects
Right.
design of trucks decades later. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
for sure. Okay, what was the overhead clearance? So you know what I'm talking about. You go under a bridge.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was that standard? It has to be
For
at
interstate.
least this high for
Huh.
interstates.
I'm going to say 15 feet.
Very close.
Okay. That's close enough. What's
14
the
14
nice.
feet. Okay.
Nice.
Next question. In which state was the first section completed under the new law?
The first section
I'm
of-
not talking about sections that were used eventually, that were already existing, that were used for the interstate system. I'm talking about brand new roads. Which state do you think completed the first section?
And we're talking about interstates?
Interstates.
Virginia.
Nope.
Say like Kansas.
What? How do you know this?
I just,
Dang it, Josh.
Come on.
Yeah.
I get
All
it.
right, we get it. You're smart. Okay.
That's hilarious. Okay, so yes, Josh.
I was just thinking,
Why
like,
Kansas?
Well, I was just thinking,
What's the easiest?
This is unexplored. I mean, this is even in the 50s. Like getting out to the west was a big deal.
Yeah.
So that was to me like the gateway state and like the straightest shot you could take.
That's true.
That's
I
why
kind of
picked
just figured
Kansas.
they'd head out of D.C. and the first state that they hit. Well, let's start here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was an 8-mile section of US 40 west of Topeka. So that was the very
Interesting.
first one. They had a little ceremony and stuff. They were very, very proud of that. Let's see. So in August 1956, the AASHO, which stands for the American Association of State Highway Officials, built a 7-mile, I thought this was really interesting. They built a 7-mile test highway consisting of 6 loops and a straightaway. Half of it was concrete, half of it was asphalt. Reason being they're trying to test different surfaces.
Okay.
So they had a range of different materials and differing thicknesses. And it also included, I think it was 6. I put 16, but that sounds way too many. It was either 6 or 16 short span bridges. And they conducted tests on this to figure out how they're going to build the rest of it. So that became the foundation on the materials that they used, how thick the concrete was going to be. And they tested it in all kinds of different scenarios of weather and all that kind of stuff.
That's why, for the most part, our interstates, state to state, a lot of the overpasses look the same.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So the straight portion of that test track is still there.
Ooh.
It is now part of I-80 in Illinois.
Wow.
There you
Good to
go.
know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. The next little fact, the interstate sign, they asked all the states to contribute to figure out what the design of the interstate. So you know what I'm talking about, the red, white, and blue sign.
Wait, I thought I did. Now I
That says
don't.
that says the number of the highway.
So think
Okay,
about
yeah.
near us, I-75.
It looks like a shield.
Yep.
With the red, white, and
so I
blue.
was thinking
Yeah.
the shield, but I couldn't. I was like the shield sign, but I didn't think of the colors on it.
Yeah, so they narrowed it down to 4, and then they put those 4 full-size signs that were like the final candidates up at this test track, and then they had people, I guess the people that ran the test track, view it in all different scenarios of weather and light. Okay. So in the morning, in the evening, when it's raining, when it's, and that's what they did. They, from those tests, they determined this is the most visible.
Okay.
The visibility is,
It's a good thing to think about.
yeah. So the 2 states were, that contributed the signs were Missouri and Texas. So the final sign was a combination of the design of Missouri and Texas.
Wow,
So
good for them. Good job, guys.
That's how we ended up with the red, white, and blue shield sign.
Very nice.
Okay, question. What's the longest route? Of any like continuous interstate system, which one is the longest? Any clue?
I-10.
Well, I feel
I-10.
I feel like the fix is in, so Josh will probably get it right.
Is it I-10?
Nope. That was in the top like 5 though.
Okay,
So
I'm not familiar with the cross country interstate.
Okay, so
I'm going to say I-20.
I-20. No, that wasn't even in the top 5. Okay, so it's I-90. It runs from Seattle, Washington to Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
It's
Okay, that's way- yeah, that's way longer.
3,020 miles.
That's incredible.
And a half.
That's incredible.
Doesn't 20 go from Georgia to Texas?
I think so.
Okay, so
why-
that's like twice as long as
The next
I-10, I think, goes from Florida. I'm not going to
I-10.
keep talking. It goes
I don't
from
know.
Florida to
Right.
Texas or something.
Okay.
Yeah. The next one is San Francisco to California. Sorry, San Francisco, California
that's-
to Teaneck, New Jersey, and that's I-80. That's the next
Wow.
one. Which state has the most interstate mileage? This is a pretty obvious one, I think.
Texas.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
Makes
Yep,
sense.
Texas followed by, Texas has 17 routes for a total of 3,233.45 miles. And the next one's California. All right. Let's see. State capitals. All but 4 state capitals are directly served by the interstate system. Those not directly served are... You guys are never going to get this.
Yeah,
I'll just
that's
say.
an impossible
ahead.
question.
Juneau, Alaska, Dover, Delaware, Jefferson City, Missouri, and Pierre, South Dakota.
Oh, I was going to say all of those.
Only 4.
Okay, here's a good one to end it off with. Where do the mile markers start in a state? What, like you pass the mile markers.
Yeah.
Where does that start?
It's the state line, right?
Well, it is, but what geographic?
The southernmost state line.
Yes, it's a southern or western state line.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So now you know way more than you ever wanted to know about the United
Way
States
more.
interstate system. And I'm going to put a lot more information on our show notes. So if you really
That's
want to
good.
dive into it.
I could get into that.
Yeah,
some
definitely
more.
good info.
Yeah. I know we went a little bit longer than we normally do. But anyways, Josh, wrap us up.
Yeah, so guys, that was episode 4. We talked about things you should know how to do regarding basic automotive repair and maintenance. Tim gave us a lowdown on the history of the interstate system, which was very interesting. So thanks for listening to episode 4. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to the podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at YouCanMan, and we also have the website youcanman.com. And we'll see you next time.